Messick's, a helping hand with your land.
Neil from Messick's here today with a TerraKing TBK20 hopper style grass catcher for the Kubota BX series tractors. This is a piece that we're able to sell to you directly around the country no matter where you are. And if this happens to show up at your house, we're going to go through and do a quick installation video here for you. Show you how to uncrate this guy and stick it on your tractor. I think you're going to be impressed just how easy this is. The bagger is fastened to this bottom skid here with 7/16 lag bolts that run through these parking stands down here in the bottom. You can easily get these with an open-ended wrench, but we're going to use an impact driver here. Just slide that over top of the lag bolts and zip them right out of the skid. When you're putting a PTO-powered implement onto your small tractor for the first time, most of the time you need to trim your PTO shafts down to fit. This is going to be no exception. So this shaft is a little bit too long out of the box here to fit onto the tractor. What you're going to want to do is to take some kind of saw, bandsaw, hacksaw, it's a lot of work because this is hard metal, and trim both ends of this shaft down so that when it goes on the back of the tractor and your 3-point hitch travels up and down, this shaft doesn't bottom out on itself. You want it to be able to move in and out throughout the travel up and down on the tractor. If you have a 3-point quick hitch, you're going to want to do this with the quick hitch installed because this shaft is going to be a little bit longer for those guys than somebody that may be pinning their bagger directly onto the tractor. In my opinion, that's a really worthwhile investment for this thing because as you watch us here in the future, when we back up to this thing, we can easily hook it, pick right up, and drive away. It's a really easy installation. In order to take this shaft and put it onto the bagger, there's a set screw. One side right here has a pin that goes onto your tractor. The other side over here has a set screw that holds it onto this shaft, and you can see there's a keyway cut right into the shaft here. You're simply going to loosen up this set screw, slide the shaft over top, and tighten it back down again to lock it onto the shaft. You notice when you first pick this thing up that it's going to hang on the tractor a little bit odd. That's because of all the additional weight from the fan over on this side of the tractor. If you go and you take your 3-point sway bars, roll this thing out into the position that you'd like it in, kind of centered behind the tractor, and tighten down those sway bars, it'll sit appropriately behind the machine. This is one of those attachments where you're going to want to have those sway bars fairly tight to hold the bagger unit rigid behind the tractor. Included in the cardboard box that comes along with this is this harness and hardware kit. We slide the pieces right out here. We're going to have some zip ties, a U-bolt, and some nuts to secure it, and then the wiring harness to go up to the tractor to operate the dump. The hopper on this is operated with an electric cylinder. So you're going to run this up to the battery to get power to it. You've got a bracket here that's going to bolt onto your roll bar to give you this toggle switch to open and close it. And then a remainder of the harness here, it's going to go back to the bagger itself. You do a pretty nice job here of giving you connectors between all of these things and not just like putting these wires into length and leaving it at that, because these weatherproof connectors are not exactly inexpensive. You can see here pretty clearly, it's one of these things that's kind of impossible to do wrong. If you just take the connectors, push them together, that's going to give you the piece between the switch back to the hopper and then also the piece from the switch up to the battery to get that power back here to open it up. We're setting this one up just for display out in our parking lot, so we're not going to go overboard and zip tying this thing down, but there's plenty of room here and plenty of wire to be able to run this from the battery back underneath the deck and then up to the switch back on your roll bar. Several small zip ties are included in order to give you a lot of different places in order to fasten this thing down. Just put it in a place that it's not going to get caught on any of the moving linkage underneath the tractor for the mower deck. Once you get your terminals hooked up, you'll notice here if you follow the kind of the main wiring harness, there's a gap right back in here where you can fit this loom tubing into. You can push it down into the gap. It gives you plenty of room to go over and get that front cover back onto here and keep the wiring really neat and tidy. Now that we've got the power hooked up to this thing, we can just use our rocker switch right here and open the back hopper and get the rest of the parts out of the inside. See what goodies fall out of here. Now once you open up this back hopper, the hose is going to fall right out of the bottom. But don't be fooled that that's the only thing that's in there. When you climb down here and look up in the inside, you'll also notice that there's another bag up in there that's got some additional parts in it that you need in order to finish the installation. You'll notice that there's one piece missing from the whole delivery of TerraKing stuff, and that's the mower deck boot kit to go put the attachment on the end of the deck in order to turn that grass 90 degrees and send it back to the bagger. This is actually a Kubota kit that they're using to do this, and this is really smart. The OEM boot kits always fit a lot better than the aftermarket varieties that are out there. And so in this case, for most of you with a 60-inch deck, you're gonna use a BX3027 kit that's gonna go onto this BX80 series tractor. If you have a mower deck that's smaller than 60 inches or one of the older models, give us a call. We'll make sure you get the right part number. So you're gonna notice inside of this kit, you're gonna get this little piece of hose. This is gonna go unused here. This is the piece that Kubota is gonna use to go between their bagger and the boot. But in this case, what you really want is this nice heavy plastic piece right here, which is the boot itself. So this boot kit is going to come with its own set of hardware and installation instructions. There's two major pieces here besides just a bunch of nuts and bolts. That's the boot itself, and then this big orange piece. This is a block-off plate that goes down underneath the mower deck in order to help redirect the pathway of the grass to send it out towards the boot. So once we've got our mower deck boot fitted up and the bagger back here behind us, you're going to notice that you got way more black hose here than what you actually need. So these are really easy to attach. We'd start by doing the back side here, slide it over top of the opening, and then you simply line this thing up and then snap this over in order to tighten and hold it into place. Then at that point we'll go through and trim this hose. So we're going to grab a utility knife to cut through the plastic here and a set of heavy duty dikes or cutters in order to cut the wire that goes through the inside, and do the same then and attach the other end of the boot, the other end of the hose over top of the boot. One of the tricks with these big hoppers is knowing when they're full. A lot of times as you're running this kind of stuff, you've got all this material coming back into the hopper, and your only real indicator to know whether this thing is full or not is to simply listen for the tone of your tractor starting to work harder. But oftentimes by that point, you may have already plugged up the tubes, and then you got to start tearing things apart in order to get them out. TerraKing has this electronic fill sensor that helps to fill these things up. As I understand, I believe these are optional at one point, and they started to become standard equipment. On the back side of this here, you'll see this has a USB plug on it. These have an internal battery in them. They do need to be charged before they're going to work. So you simply plug one end of the USB cable into here, the other end into your phone charger or whatever. It's easy enough to install this. The bracket back here is already pre-installed. You simply take the sensor, line up the things, and click it into place, and you're good to go. Now, as we're putting our PTO shaft on, you need to put this little key in between the shaft itself and the stub coming out of the hopper itself. This thing is a little convoluted here to get on, because if you think through the order in which we're doing things, we need to get power to this hopper to be able to open it up in order to pull out the owner's manual, which has got the little key part sitting down here in the bottom. So as I'm going through and doing this, I'm leaving my PTO shaft work kind of to the end of the process as I get through mounting things up and putting on the hopper and everything, so we can grab that part and do that at the end. Inside your owner's manual pouch, you're also going to find these little, say, 1.5 inch square tube covers. These are going to go right over top of the parking stands. You can kind of line them up here on the end, and a swift tap with a hammer or your palm will put them in place. So that's the installation on the TerraKing TKV bagger. All told, the installation on this is probably about an 1.5 hour to 2 hour job in its entirety if you have the tools and everything at hand in order to do it. If you're not quite so quick on this kind of stuff, you might figure maybe a half a day or so, but it is not a difficult installation. And to their credit, there's some of the best installation instructions that I've seen on a piece of equipment like this. They're very detailed, well written, clear, and easy to follow. So if you think you could benefit from a bagger like this, you think of picking one up, give us a call at Messick's. We're available at 800-222-3373 or online at messicks.com. Go around and pop off the top and the sides and just leave this sitting on the bottom skid down here at the bottom. The bottom skid at the bottom. The crating around this is all really easily removable. The crating around this is all really easily removable. The crating around this is all really easily removable. And zip those bolts right out to release and release it. We're not releasing anything.